The smoke hung thick in neutral ground. Mixing the acrid burn of Karathi battle stems with the sweet decay of Vorthok fermentation pods, Marcus Chen sat alone at the far end of the bar, nursing his third whiskey of the evening. The amber liquid caught the dim light filtering through the cantina's grimy windows, a small piece of Earth in this godforsaken corner of space. Around him, the galaxy's most dangerous predators conducted their business in hushed, threatening tones. Karathi mercenaries flexed their razor-sharp claws while negotiating bounty contracts. Hulking Vorthok pirates, their stone-like hides scarred from countless battles, argued over territorial disputes in their rumbling bass voices. Serpentine Zephyrian assassin coiled in the corner booth, yellow eyes tracking every movement with deadly precision. None of them paid the human any attention. Why would they? Captain Vextar of the Karathi Crimson Fleet dominated the center table, his crimson carapace gleaming as he gestured with claws that could slice through steel plating. His pack surrounded him, hanging on every word as he recounted his latest conquest of a mining colony in the Outer Rim. 17 systems bowed to Karathi's superiority, Vextar boasted, his voice carrying the metallic ring of his species' vocal cords. We took their strongest warriors, broke them like twigs, their weapons melted against our hide. Their fastest runners couldn't escape our pursuit. Gornosh, a Vorthok bruiser whose shoulders could barely fit through standard doorways, grunted. His approval, Karathi no strength. It's not like these soft flesh creatures spreading through the galaxy like infection. His small eyes found Marcus at the bar. Look at that one. It's pink skin, dull teeth, no claws, no armor.
Ow.
Do they even survive their own homeworld? The Zephyrian assassin, Sith, uncoiled slightly. Their planet's gravity is barely half standard. They evolved no natural weapons, no defenses. Curious they made it to the stars at all. Marcus took another sip of his whiskey, feeling the familiar burn. He'd heard variations of this conversation on every station, every port, every cantina from here to the core worlds. Humans were curiosities at best, pets at worst. Always underestimated, always dismissed. The Centaurian bartender, his forearms, efficiently mixing drinks for the evening crowd, shook his bulbous head. Served thousands of species over the years. Humans always seem lost out here. Too soft for the hard vacuum, too weak for real work. Don't know why they keep trying. Vextar's laughter cut through the ambient noise like a blade. Perhaps they think they belong among warriors. Amusing. He stood, his 7-foot frame casting a shadow across the cantina. I have seen their military records. They fight with projectile weapons, metal pellets, fired by chemical explosions. Primitive. Their soldiers die from wounds that would barely scratch Karathi hide. The conversation might have continued in its predictable pattern if not for Vextar's next decision. He approached the bar with the casual arrogance of apex predators everywhere, his claws clicking against the metal floor. With deliberate slowness, he reached past Marcus and swept the human's whiskey glass to the floor, where it shattered into amber fragments. Apologies, Vextar said, his tone suggesting anything but regret. Sometimes we superior beings forget to watch for the small things underfoot. The cantina fell silent. Even the background hum of conversation died as every predator in the room turned to watch. This was entertainment, the moment when the soft human would either run or die trying to stand up for himself. Marcus stared at the broken glass for a long moment, then slowly turned to face the Karathi captain. I'd appreciate an apology for that drink. It was the last of my personal stock from Earth. The silence stretched until Vextar's laughter exploded through the room. Other voices joined in, Kornathi chittering, Vorthok rumbling, even the Zephyrians. Sibilant hiss of amusement. The human wanted an apology. From a Karathi fleet captain for spilled alcohol. You want to know what I think of your apology? Vextar leaned down until his predator's face was inches from Marcus's. I think soft-flesh humans should learn their place in the galaxy's hierarchy. Perhaps I should teach you personally.
Marcus
Nodded slowly as if considering the offer. Under station rules, that would be a formal challenge. Combat until yield or incapacitation. No weapons, no outside interference. Winner stays, loser gets banned from all neutral territory. You would accept such a challenge? Vexstar's voice carried genuine surprise against a Quarathi warrior. Marcus stood up, rolling his shoulders to work out the kinks from sitting too long. He was average height for a human, which put him at least a foot shorter than his challenger. No visible weapons, no armor, no natural defenses, just a freight hauler in work clothes who'd had his evening drink interrupted. I was hoping you'd say that, Marcus replied, his voice carrying an odd note of satisfaction. For the first time since entering the cantina, Vexstar felt a flicker of uncertainty. Something in the human's tone didn't match his species' reputation, something that suggested this wouldn't be the easy slaughter everyone expected. Vexstar moved first. As predators always do, his claws extended to their full 8-inch length, razor-sharp edges glinting in the cantina's dim light. He lunged forward with the lightning speed that had made Quarathi warriors legendary across 17 systems, aiming for the human's throat in a strike that should have ended the fight. Before it truly began, Marcus didn't dodge. Instead, he stepped directly into the attack, accepting the shallow cut across his shoulder as he drove his fist upward in a devastating uppercut that connected with Vexstar's jaw with the sound of breaking bone. The Quarathi captain staggered backward, purple blood streaming from his mouth, his predator's brain struggling to process what had just happened. He walked into the claws, Gornish whispered, his rumbling voice carrying disbelief. Why would he do that? The Zephyrian assassin's eyes widened. He traded minor damage for positional advantage. But no species fights that way. It goes against every survival instinct. Marcus rolled his shoulder, testing the shallow wound. The cut stung, but it was nothing compared to the broken ribs he'd earned in Detroit Underground rings, or the concussion from that bar fight in Chicago when he was 19. Pain was just information, and right now it was telling him that Quarathi claws were sharp, but poorly designed for close-quarters combat. Your species evolved those claws for intimidation, Marcus said conversationally, as Vexstar circled him warily. They're too long for efficient striking, too curved for stabbing. You rely on opponents backing away in fear. What happens when they don't? Vexstar snarled and struck again, this time with calculated precision instead of blind speed. Slipped the attack by millimeters, close enough that the claws parted his hair, and drove his elbow into the Quarathi's solar plexus. The captain folded around the impact, gasping for air that wouldn't come. The cantina had gone completely silent. Even the background hum of air recyclers seemed muted as every predator in the room watched the impossible unfold before their eyes. The human wasn't just surviving, he was winning. How is he still standing? Sith hissed, to no one in particular. That first strike should have opened his throat. Look at his heart rate, the Centaurian bartender said, his medical training, making him the first to notice. It's actually decreased since the fight began. He's calmer now than when he was drinking. Marcus had learned to fight in places where everyone was bigger, stronger, and meaner than he was. Southside Chicago didn't produce fighters who relied on natural advantages. It produced survivors who turned disadvantages into weapons. Every human who made it off Earth and into the Outer Rim carried that same lethal adaptation. Vexstar straightened. Confusion, replacing confidence in his predator's eyes. This wasn't how fights were supposed to go. Quarathi dominated through superior physical gifts, speed, strength, natural weapons. But none of those advantages seemed to matter against an opponent who thought 3 moves ahead. You're telegraphing your attacks, Marcus continued, dodging another desperate swipe. 3 full seconds before you commit. Your species probably never needed subtlety. Those claws usually end fights before strategy matters. Attitude bat. Fighting people who wanted to kill me for sport, not territory. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Vexstar had conquered worlds, commanded fleets, dominated every opponent he'd ever faced. He was apex predator perfected by evolution, but as the fight continued, his breathing grew labored, while the human seemed to find his rhythm. Impossible, Gornash rumbled. Gornash endurance is legendary. How does the soft flesh outlast him? An old freighter captain in the corner, grizzled and scarred from decades in the void, answered quietly. Because humans don't fight to dominate. They fight to survive. Survival doesn't give a damn about your natural advantages. Vexstar made his final mistake then, reaching for the concealed blade at his belt in direct violation of challenge rules. Marcus's hand intercepted the draw, twisted the Karathi's wrist with mechanical precision, and sent the weapon skittering. Across the floor, Captain found himself face down on the cantina deck, his arm locked behind his back in a submission hold no alien had ever seen. Asterisk. Yield, Marcus said calmly. This doesn't have to end with you broken. The word came out strangled, barely audible. Yield. Marcus released him immediately and stepped back, offering his hand to help Vextar to his feet. The gesture sent another. A ripple of confusion through the watching crowd. Victory without domination, strength without cruelty. The human had won, but he wasn't acting like any apex predator they'd ever encountered. Next round's on me, Marcus said, returning to his bar stool as if nothing had happened. And I'll take another whiskey if you've got it, asterisk instead of dispersing. The crowd pressed closer. Gornash was the first to speak, his rumbling voice uncharacteristically hesitant. How did you know when to counter? You moved before he committed to the strike. Marcus accepted his fresh whiskey from the stunned bartender. Your friend there telegraphs his moves 3 seconds before making them. It's probably never needed to develop subtlety. Those claws usually end fights before tactics matter. But that means you were analyzing his combat patterns while fighting, Sith said, uncoiling from her booth to slither closer. No species can do that. Combat triggers survival response, pure instinct, maybe for you. Marcus took a sip of whiskey. Humans fight with their brains, not just their bodies. We had two. Everything else on our planet was stronger than us. An elderly Zephyrian scholar who'd been quietly observing from the corner spoke up. You're a species evolved, no natural weapons. We assumed this was evolutionary failure. Not failure, adaptation. Marcus turned to face the growing crowd. Your claws are devastating, but they're also limiting. Can only attack in specific ways. Human hands can hold tools, weapons, become weapons themselves. We're not locked into one fighting style. The bartender's forearms had stopped moving. Entirely. That's why humans keep showing up in impossible places. You don't optimize for one environment, you adapt to any environment. Vextar, his pride wounded worse than his body, pulled himself into a chair. But your military records? Chemical projectiles? Primitive technology? Effective technology, Marcus corrected. A bullet doesn't care how tough your hide is. It finds the weak spots evolution couldn't armor. Plus, when your weapons break, you can build new ones. When your claws break, you're helpless. Gornash leaned forward, his massive frame creaking the reinforced chair. You speak as if your entire species thinks this way. We do, Marcus's voice carried a weight that made several aliens step back. Humans have been fighting each other for millennia. Not just for territory, for ideas, beliefs, survival itself. We've had wars that lasted centuries and killed millions. Every conflict taught us something new about tactics, strategy, adaptation. The implications hit the room like a shockwave. Sith's voice barely rose above a whisper. Your entire species is descended from warriors, not warriors, survivors. Marcus's correction was gentle, but firm. Warriors fight for glory. Survivors fight to solve problems. There's a difference. An ancient Korathi elder who'd been silent in the back corner finally spoke. The humans who reached the Outer Rim, they survived your homeworld's conflicts? Every single one, Marcus nodded. Earth doesn't let the weak leave. By the time we make it to space, we've already proven we can adapt to anything. The scholar's eyes widened with realization. That's why human diplomatic missions succeed where others fail. You don't just study your opponents, you understand them. We have to, Marcus said. On Earth, your enemies today might be your allies tomorrow. We learned to make friends with people who wanted to kill us yesterday. A hush fell over the cantina as the full picture emerged. Every alien species had evolved for specific niches. Korathi for pack hunting, Vorthok for brute strength, Zephyrians for stealth kills. But humans had evolved for something far more dangerous. Infinite adaptability. Your stubbornness, the bartender said slowly. It's not personality, it's species strategy. Persistence hunting, Marcus confirmed. We don't give up because giving up means extinction. Our ancestors chased prey for days until it collapsed. From exhaustion, we applied the same principle to everything else. War, diplomacy, survival. Gornash's voice carried newfound respect. If humans are this dangerous individually, what are you capable of collectively? Out. Marcus smiled, and for the first time every predator in the room felt like prey. You really don't want to find out, trust me on that. The old freighter captain in the corner raised his glass. To the species that turned weakness into strength. He paused, studying Marcus with ancient eyes. And to the galaxy being lucky that humans prefer making friends to making enemies. The toast was drunk and thoughtful. Silence. Everything they thought they knew about the cosmic hierarchy had just been rewritten by a freight hauler with steady hands and a strategic mind. Within hours, subspace communications carried news of the fight across 3 sectors. By the end of the week, every major intelligence agency in the galaxy had Marcus Chen's combat footage under analysis. The implications rippled outward like cracks in reality itself. On Corathi Prime, military strategists watched the recording. In stunned silence, their greatest warrior defeated by calculated precision rather than superior force. Fleet Admiral Kexiver paused the footage at the moment Marcus stepped into Vexstar's claws. Run psychological profiles on every human in our territory. Immediately, the Vorthok Confederacy's response was more direct. General Thok personally traveled to neutral ground, not to challenge Marcus, but to offer him command of a mixed species. Assault Division. We need leaders who think like you, he rumbled. Our enemies won't expect it. But the real revolution began in the diplomatic corps. Ambassador Rilth of the Centaurian Alliance found herself across the negotiation table. From a human trade representative who'd seemed insignificant just days before, now she noticed things she'd missed, the way he analyzed her body language. The strategic pauses in his speech, the careful way he framed proposals that seemed to benefit both sides while subtly advancing human interests. You've been playing us from the beginning, she realized halfway through the session. The human ambassador smiled. We've been trying to avoid playing at all, but if you insist on treating diplomacy like combat, we're very good at combat. The economic effects were immediate. Human shipping contracts, previously considered risky ventures into dangerous space, became premium assignments. Pirates began avoiding human freight routes entirely after 3 separate incidents were helpless. Human crews turned the tables on their attackers using nothing but standard cargo equipment and tactical thinking. Marcus found himself fielding offers from across the galaxy. Military consulting contracts, diplomatic advisory positions, private security firms wanting to understand human tactical psychology. He turned them all down, preferring his simple freight routes to the complications of galactic politics. But 6 months after the fight, he accepted one offer that surprised everyone. Captain of the exploration vessel Harmony. A joint venture between 7 species to map the uncharted regions beyond the Outer Rim. His first officer? Vexstar, who'd spent the intervening months studying human military history with the dedication of a religious convert. I still don't understand why you helped me back up, Vexstar said as they prepared for their maiden voyage. Because the fight was over, Marcus replied. Humans don't win by destroying our enemies. We win by turning them into allies. The bridge crew, Karathi, Vorthok, Zephyrian, Centaurian, and Human, represented something unprecedented and galactic. History, not a hierarchy based on strength, but a partnership based on complementary abilities. The Karathi provided warrior instincts. The Vorthok brought raw power. Zephyrians offered stealth capabilities. The Centaurians contributed scientific knowledge. And the Humans, they provided the strategic thinking that made it all work together. Their first mission took them into the Void Sector's regions so dangerous that no single species had ever successfully explored them. But the Harmony didn't rely on any single species' strengths. When they encountered the crystalline swarms of Kepler 442, the Karathi identified the threat, while the Zephyrians found the weak points, and the Vorthok provided the firepower to exploit them, all coordinated by human tactical analysis. The galaxy watched in fascination as reports came back from the Harmony. Impossible discoveries in impossible places achieved by a crew that shouldn't have been able to work together. The secret wasn't superior technology or overwhelming force. It was the human concept of synthesis. Turning individual strengths into collective capabilities. Back at neutral ground, the cantina had become something of a pilgrimage site. Young aliens from across the galaxy came to see where the paradigm shift began, to understand how one fight had changed everything. The bartender, now something of a celebrity himself, served drinks and told the story to anyone who'd listen. About humans, he'd say while polishing glasses with all four hands, is that they don't see enemies. They see puzzles to solve. They're very, very good at solving puzzles. The broken whiskey glass had been carefully preserved, displayed in a place of honor behind the bar. Reminder that sometimes the most important battles are fought not with claws or weapons, but with the simple refusal to accept that some problems can't be solved. The galaxy was still learning what that meant. Asterisk.